Well, hey, this is Dammit, and this is my report for the Phonomantic rite conducted on Saturday, March 27th, 2021. It's a flawless victory. But man, it was a battle from end to end. I want to point out that I consider phonomancy to be a kind of it's almost like an internal martial art that you use to deal with the things that come up while you're working with high doses. And I think that what happens is that when you do this stuff for long enough, you become like a beacon. You shine in the spirit world and predators gravitate towards you. You draw attention to yourself in a way that people who do it much more sporadically don't draw attention. And so if you're gonna do this work, you have to learn how to cope with the stuff that comes up. And it's different every time, so that you do a lot of improvising. So I've got a bunch of notes here. I came up with a new technique for sort of success in the early stages of the ceremony, where the anxiety tends to be the most pronounced. I simply came up with a mantra, and I repeated to myself, "I'm free to enjoy myself. I am safe in the arms of my beloved, the great goddess." I just said it over and over again. And the key to, when you do that thing where you say a word too many times and it loses its meaning, you don't want that to happen when you're doing something like this. So you simply put emphasis in different places in the sentence every time. I am free to enjoy myself. I am safe in the arms of my beloved, the great goddess. I am free to enjoy myself. I am safe in the arms of the great goddess. And try to feel it in your sternum and inflect it in different ways and feel it in different ways. Really mean it every time that you say it. Resistance was at me like right away. I saw dreadful things like sheep that were torn apart, blood spattered everywhere, and a corpse in a bathtub, blood on the walls, and I felt the tension in my body and in my chest of fear. But I just didn't allow it to get to me. Like, my body was locked in fear, and I was able to stay detached from it. I felt it, and I could even appreciate it on an aesthetic level. But it didn't affect me, and I got through it. It worked great. So I had new insights about resistance, and I've got here. These are from the transcription of my narration of the evening. I'm probably going to cut in certain parts of that footage into this video. So it says, "What I've come to realize is that resistance comes in the form of any emotion that stands in the way of you achieving your goal for the evening, which is breaking through." And I'll say more about that in a little bit. So any kind of disappointment, that's resistance, and you just have to laugh at it. You can't take it seriously. And so, for instance, at the end of Moon Age Daydream, the David Bowie song, which it's the second song in the Stereo Myth, during Mick Ronson's outro guitar solo, a number of times I have hit that incredible experience of suddenly being flooded by waves of energy and feeling like I'm being carried aloft, And I've posted videos of this online, much to people's hilarious enjoyment, I'm sure, but you don't understand what it is that you're looking at. Like, I'm in the throes of a spiritual orgasm. It's like nothing I've ever experienced in my life, and nothing I've ever really heard about people doing via psychedelics. Maybe through like Kundalini yoga or something like that, like where you're feeling like Shakti, like waft through your body. In any event, this time it didn't happen, and I didn't break through into that sort of spirit space. It was just sort of me, and it was really important to manage my expectations in that moment, because I started to feel like when it didn't come, like I was disappointed, and I was starting to feel like, oh, why isn't this working? You're a fraud, and that gives resistance leverage. That gives this force, whatever it is that wants to pull you away from the successful exploration of the spirit world just down into madness and despair. It gives a place to pull you down, and you can't let that happen. And the way that you avoid it is you can't be attached to the outcome, right? I go into these sessions every time and I'm hoping that I'll go in and come back with something useful or something incredibly inspiring. And when they don't come when I expect them to, I get antsy, you know? But all that really matters is how you are processing the situation you're in, right? You simply focus on, how am I handling it, right? Like, are you keeping your attitude right? Are you enjoying yourself? Are you able to concentrate even with the tremendous chaos blasting in your ears? And it says, if the answer to those questions is yes, then you've achieved success. Enjoy it. Just keep doing your job and don't worry about anything but this moment. Don't worry about whether this session is going to produce anything meaningful or noteworthy. Don't be mad about not being able to access the energies of spirit. And this is a very important point. Remember, you are not the one who decides when those moments arrive. They are visits by entities that have their own agenda. It's not an automatic thing. They don't simply come because you call them. They're not your pets. You're their pet. Their construction. If you can remember that and simply serve faithfully in the moment, in the situation that you've put yourself in, then that's the jam. That's the work. That's success. And once I really kept that at the forefront of my intention, everything got way, way easier. That said, one aspect of resistance is it can really suppress the visionary effects of the medicine. So you're feeling this tremendous tension in your body, like you're tripping really hard, but not seeing anything. It's extremely uncomfortable because the closed eye visions they're entrancing. They're glorious, and without that, you just kind of you're flailing a little bit, you know, and so and it doesn't matter if resistance is strong enough. It doesn't matter how much you've taken. So last night I was working on 4 grams of cubensis plus 1.5 grams of azuricens on a 3.5 gram water extract of Syrian root plus 2 hits of pot, and barely, at a certain point, barely feeling like I was tripping at all. And last year, around this time on my birthday last year, I did 10 grams with the Syrian root. So effectively I got somewhere between 15 and 20 grams and didn't trip at all, but just sat there in an agony of tension, like basically a 4-hour panic attack that I just talked myself through. And that was really the start of that terrible spiritual crisis that I had last summer. That was the first time that something truly malevolent and way, way stronger than me at the time, like, settled upon me. And I'm getting better at recognizing it as it's happening. My capacity to see, quote unquote, to see in the space, that is, for my imagination to generate images that are representative of the energies that I'm dealing with, is improving. And there was a really incredible moment during the Boston song, Don't Look Back, which is often a very transportive song for me, like into real, like, celestial glory. And when that guitar solo, if I hear it just in the right space, it's the very voice of God itself. And last time I did it, I had this incredible vision of the science fictional future that Phonomanticism was trying to create. This time, right as I was getting to that point, all of a sudden, my mind's eye was dominated by visions of the Old West. Like a ranch in the 19th century, and just sort of a sense of like rawhide and whips and meanness, just out of nowhere. And then I kind of like worked my way past it, and then it would come back again, and it really interfered with my ability to, or completely stop me from accessing that higher celestial kind of place. It says here, it deadened my response to the song. And I realized, like, this is real. I mean, it's happening in an imaginal reality, but you're not just making this stuff up. You are actually encountering something malevolent through the medium of your consciousness and having to cope with it. And it's a different problem every time. The main thing is getting to the end of the evening in an intact, positive frame of mind. And all the decisions you make along the way are getting you there. The one other really remarkable bit of seeing that happened was a little bit later in the night during the emotion song Best of My Love, during the transcendental disco. I'm standing there dancing, right? And so the way I have my setup, I just have my one camera, my phone, like shooting, and it's only set up so I can see my face when I'm sitting in a chair. So if I'm dancing, I can't see myself. But I have a ring light, and when I want to speak, I want to make a note, I just turn on the ring light and it lights everything up. And so I know, like going back through the footage, that when the light's on, that I said something I want to record. And so I'm still dancing, and I reach down and I turn on the light, and I say, I can see them. I can see them so clearly in my mind's eye right now. They're like a sudden gallery of Marvel villains, presenting very clearly. They look like guys in S&M masks forged from plate steel and luchador costumes. Fuck, a whole rogues gallery. I saw them one after the other. I think there were like 5 of them, just these, seeing, like, my eyes were closed, but I was seeing them as clearly as if I was in a lucid dream. And they were throwing these, like a whole variety of unhelpful images, and it says here, like, political issues that arise with that song. And honestly, I don't remember what they were, but there were reasons why I shouldn't be working. It was problematic for me, I think, as a white man, to be working with this song and identifying with a black woman singing this music. And it was like, they'll use anything to try to throw you off your game. And so you have to stay light on your feet. You have to, that's never happened to me before, right? And so you can't let it throw you. You have to stay concentrated and stay calm. And most of all, like, keep having fun, even as these uncanny things are happening. All right. So now there's 2 really big things that I want to talk about from here. The first is a real elaboration of this Gnostic myth that has arisen as a result of doing this work. I have an idea of what's happening here on Earth that is inspired directly by images that come to me from these visions, and it's something like this, that, like, and again, it's a story, right? It's a myth. Not literally what it is, but it's a useful way. It's a way to think about it it'll help us make sense of it in human terms. But basically, like, all the events that are happening here in this reality are the result of a game that's being played by these higher order beings. The great goddess is homeschooling her children, and she's charged them with creating a universe and then populating it with sentient life, and then getting them to a point where a critical mass of them can incarnate her in their consciousnesses. That's the solution. That's what history is aiming for. I mean, there's a lot more to it, and I'm still sort of like, I'm still figuring out how to articulate it, because these things come in piecemeal. But I've seen them for a long time. I used to see them as little kids on the shores of a lake outside a really elegant home, playing like D&D kind of, but they had charts and they had dice and they had slide rules and they were working all this stuff out, and they had made this incredible calculation. They had sacrificed millions upon millions upon millions of people in order to build up this certain surfeit of dark energy, which they were gonna then tap and use that energy to create the future where 10 billion people can use phonomancy to access the divine presence. So I saw them again, except I didn't see them as little kids this time. They were like young adults, and they were in this really, really beautiful, like a living room in a villa, all made of marble. This just glorious architecture, and they were in these couches were in this sort of sunken session, and in the middle of it was a table. It was where they were playing their tabletop game, and I was on the board as one of their pieces, and my figurine was a baby satyr, and they had gotten me into this position where now I'm going to transform. I have been carefully designed in order to bring consciousness of the horn god into our reality, into making that a major part of our reality again, teaching people about this force that we can all access and how to get it to incarnate, become real for them. And it's happening now, and all that's left is for history to catch up. Like I said, I'm working on writing. It's all, if you watch that video that I made, a Gnostic Myth for the 21st century, it's a little bit more articulate than this, but just have that idea that they are playing a game and we're all part of it. Our lives here, in a sense, it almost solves the problem of free will, because we are predestined to do certain things because they have designed us to perform certain roles in their scheme, but at the same time they don't have direct control over us. We are making the real time. It's sort of like generals with an army, right? They have a strategy, they stage an invasion or whatever, some kind of operation, but it's up to the individual soldiers to figure out how to get it done. And so it's like that for us. But it was so incredibly fun, and I was so suffused with the love that these entities had for me. Like here's an excerpt. It says, "Your time is at hand, Pa. You've got goddesses swooning over you. They like your lines. They're like a bunch of rich heiresses checking out this very, very high performance machine that they're going to race. So there's an erotic tinge to this, but they're also hardcore engineers or trainers. They're so badass. I love these chicks. My God, the snap and crackle of the energy around them. It's like being in the Fast and the Furious, but utterly committed to the cause of righteousness." I can't even begin to explain how fun it is to live in that reality during these visions. It's fucking amazing. It's so amazing. And the whole point of this, right? It's two ways to look at it. One is that they're trying to solve this problem that their mother posed to them, but the other is that they are creating a gift. In fact, we all are. We're creating a gift for the Holy Ma by trying to take what we have and create a civilization that could support 10 billion people who have the time to dedicate to self-actualizing and mastering this art of accessing the divine. And I guess the way I've always explained it to people is every time somebody reaches enlightenment, it's like there's a flare that goes off in local reality space. And every few decades, somebody will hit it, and it's like a star exploding, But now imagine 10 billion of them going off at once, creating a celestial fireworks display that's so beautiful. And Ma sees it, the Holy Ma sees it, and bursts into tears because she's so proud of us. So it says here, the goal is creating a present for the Holy Ma. They're saying, look what we did with all you gave us. And Ma looks upon the civilization that Phonomancy will create, and she starts to cry. And part of her crying, and okay, so this is part of the myth too. And part of her crying is simply her joy at Lucifer rejoining the family fold, because that's part of the story too, is that there's an adversary in this game that they're playing, and it's their older brother Lu. who's playing the devil himself, the no against that they have to work against, right? And he's been shut away from them for the course of the game. So it says, part of her crying is simply her joy at Lucifer rejoining the family fold. She knows how important this game is, but she misses him, her firstborn son. She loves his humor and can't wait to hear his side of events from the beginning of time, as he did everything he could think of to defeat the crazy scheme his siblings came up with. He has to admit that this time they really outdid themselves. It's quite spectacular, and he can't wait to see it unfold in the family discotheque. It's going to be quite a party, and Ma's the guest of honor. 10 billion of the invited all access her at the same moment. Her name called 10 billion times in 10 billion minds, united singing on high. And then I say, and remember, this is all just off the top, this is what I'm seeing, right? And I'm narrating it on camera as I'm seeing it in my head. My God, what I'm getting now in my visionary space is fucking William Blake territory. Straight up endless vistas of Greek and Roman architecture spiraling and enfolding and generating out of the very nothingness that is Ma. Glory be to God. Hi, Ma. I love you. Oh my God. Yeah, and I just kept seeing them over, the vision kept returning to them again and again, sitting, playing this game, watching rapt as events were unfolding. Okay, and then, so then the next thing is, this is actually really serious. I fucked up. I started doing the Anne Frank working, which is the most important part. If you've been following this at all, there's this part of the mythos is that there's this terrible black wall that's the energetic residue of all the genocide and slavery of the last however many centuries. And it's preventing our progress, and pressure is building that may lead to an apocalyptic disaster. And so what we do in the Anne Frank working is we force ourselves to go through Anne's experience. And in doing so, we remove a single block from that wall, which is made up of like 500 million stones. And I got halfway through it and I realized, like, I just kept talking to the camera. I kept having these other insights that were important and I needed to get down, but I wasn't doing the work. So I went back and I did it again. And this time, the visionary horror of it was taking to absolutely unprecedented heights. And at this point, I'm gonna cut into the video that I have of it.
Trembling, watching this happen to people in the street, the cops pulling them out of their homes and marching them down, and needing to do something, but so fucking afraid, and feeling like such a fucking coward. Look what happened. I was a fucking coward. How many? How many? They just pulled a fucking dump truck in the middle of the fucking intersection and fucking tilted it up, and all these fucking bones came out with the meat on them, and it's just in a fucking pile. It was fucking 10 feet high in the fucking middle of the intersection. There were still pieces of clothing on them. Fuck, you can still see part of a fucking girl, like half of a fucking girl. Just fucking torn in half. And I let that happen. I let that happen. I let that happen. Buried her body.
And so what you're seeing there is me. What's happening is I'm watching a video that I've made to go along with this Neutral Milk Hotel song, "Oh Comely," and it's built on around a film adaptation of Diary of a Young Girl, the Anne Frank story. And so there's black and white film of this pretty young girl, you know, so young, so innocent, and so looking forward to life, and she's falling in love for the first time, but it's intercut with all this this real newsreel footage of violence in the streets of you know, Nazis pulling people out of their homes. And what I do, sometimes I see, I approach this in various ways, but last night what I saw was this happening in my neighborhood. There's a home across the street, a couple homes that are kind of a compound. They're Mexican-American families, and what I was watching while I'm going through what you just saw on camera is them being pulled out into the street by riot-suited cops and beaten with truncheons, and then like sent running towards these buses that they're forced to board, and me watching helplessly and being so outraged but also so afraid to do anything about it, and hating myself for being such a coward. And then it takes this turn for truly unspeakable horror as I saw a dump truck pull into the intersection right by my house and upend itself, and out came this huge pile of human viscera, just like fresh meat, just bones and flesh. But then I looked closer and I saw that it was people. You could see clothes, and I saw like a 3-year-old girl that was just torn in half, and it was unbelievable. I mean, beyond bearing. And what is the point of that, you might ask? Well, that's what penance looks like. That's what owning the horror that actually really happened and facing the reality of that. And again, that the visionary idea is that in doing so, it's a kind of like collective shadow work, and it reduces the chance that that's going to happen again. It's like an individual inoculation against it. And the more people we can get doing that together, the more, I don't know what the literal truth is about this idea of a wall in visionary, in energetic space preventing us from moving forward. I don't know, it's a mystery to me. This is something that arose from the unconscious that I am dealing with, but it seems so deeply, incredibly meaningful. And the other thing that I want to point out by putting this footage up is that I want you to understand this emotional self-control that's evolved here. It's like I tap into this, into a current of the most egregious shame and awfulness. And yet when the moment's done, I'm out of it. And then a minute later, I'm like what does this say here? I'm back at it like a craftsman with quiet joy, unfazed by what just happened. And that is something that is, well, I don't quite understand it yet completely. I understand it vastly expands my ability to feel in general. Like the heights of exaltation you can hit are directly proportionate to the depths of abysmal despair that you can reach too. And so by reaching down into that true awfulness, I increase my ability to reach the heavenly heights. And the other thing is it improves my self-control out in the real world too. It strengthens executive function. And this is all stuff that I'm not an academic, I'm not a trained psychologist. I'm doing my best to understand this stuff as it goes. And I think once I'm able to get some of this stuff out there and finally have people like listen to me and take me seriously, like I'll be able to talk to the people who can help me understand a little bit better what it is that is going on with this stuff. One super fun thing is at the end of the instrumental after Ghost in the Anne Frank working, I've got these scenes of I don't know what movie I pulled it from, but it's a crowd. It's of African American actors dancing a dance called the Cakewalk, and Lena Horne is the star, and I see Lena Horne as Ma, and this really hilariously awesomely goofy guy as Pa, and they're just cakewalking into the future, and man, it's awesome. So good. Okay, here's the last thing I need to talk about. It says here, the reality that I was just having is very specific in terms of this is all happening. Any day now, I'm going to look at my Powerball account and it's going to say I won $237 million. And it's all going to click into place. And then I need to have a plan in place. I need specifics. I need to know exactly the moves to make in order to realize all this stuff. And it looks something like, I'm gonna hire some friends and I'm gonna move us to Los Angeles and I'm gonna get like a real producer. I'm gonna find a way to talk to John Cameron Mitchell and ask him how to stage. I've got a show that I wanna stage, and what I wanna do really is I wanna hire a bunch of actors, like 12 actors for 6 months, and have them come live with me, and we're gonna make a movie, but it's gonna be a movie about us putting together this show, the full theatrical version of this thing I've been doing as a one-man act. I'm gonna teach them to be phonomancers, and in the process, I'm gonna document everything that I've been thinking and talking about. I'm gonna hire brand managers and everything that will go into basically making my vision a reality. In this ceremony, I am assured again and again that's going to happen. But now I'm back in the real world, right? That seems exceedingly unlikely. And yet I have to carry that weight. I have to carry this tension. And I have to somehow manage how the circumstances of my life, my mundane life are not particularly great right now. I've got a good job. It pays well, but I'm not good at it, and I do not want to be doing it. I want to do this, and I'm living in a pretty dreary place, and my social contacts are like next to nothing, and I haven't dated in years, and like all this stuff it's this huge weight to be carrying, and yet at the same time now I have to pretend, I have to play a game of make-believe every day that this is going to happen. I am going to get the opportunity to realize this stuff, like all this impossible supernatural stuff. It's for real. Now, I gotta get creative in the way that I cope with that, the stress of that, There is a way, I think, that I can take a strictly Jungian approach and deal with this as an imaginal reality and like live this whole life in my imagination, and hopefully be able to, I'll get to a place where I don't need this to work out in that way, because something great will happen. I'll meet a wonderful woman, and we'll get married, and I'll have an actual life. You know what I mean? And this stuff can sort of recede, like somehow I'll have done some kind of great psychological work for myself, and it won't matter. Otherwise, I am gonna self-destruct in the most spectacular way. And I'm laughing about it now, but it's actually it's a real danger. If this goes on for too many more years like this, and nothing ever happens with it, and I end up in this dead-end life, there's gonna be consequences. And I won't understand, I truly won't understand it, because I cannot convey to you how convincing these things are while they're happening in this space, It seems exceedingly unlikely that, maybe I'm just a victim of some kind of vast cosmic practical joke, but who would possibly go through the trouble to create such a convincing simulacrum of the divine? That it's so original and so fucking wild, and so filled with it's so numinous. It's otherworldly. I wish I was a visual artist. I wish I had an eidetic memory so I could come back and represent to you what it is that I'm seeing. I mean, there are people out there like Mark Ryden and Alex Gray. They're actually, a lot of it's kind of close to that, but man. Anyway, I am incredibly grateful for another successful mission. Every one of these is such a high-risk operation. I go into every one just still remembering how god-awful it was last summer when things went wrong over and over again, and realizing there's always a chance that could happen. Every fight that you get into, and these are fights every time, it's like a spiritual MMA match, can turn real bad real fast, and you realize suddenly you're in the ring with an opponent who doesn't just want to win, they want to kill you. That's something. Anyway, how long? We've been talking for 35 minutes now. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. As ever, I am Dammit, reminding you to say, fuck yeah, to every pain and every pleasure in life. Do it for your ma. I'm an alligator. I'm a mama, papa coming for you.